Hello, and welcome to the CoStar News Hotels podcast. I'm Trevor Simpson, staff writer at CoStar News Hotels, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by two fantastic guests. We have Jan Freitag, National Director of Hospitality Analytics at CoStar Group, and Peter Yeung, Managing Director of the Walker Hotel Collection, which includes the Walker Hotel Greenwich Village and the Walker Tribeca Hotel in New York City. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Trevor. Good to
much.
be here.
Thanks for having me.
So, we're recording this podcast on Monday, July 20th, meaning that the 2026 FIFA World Cup final was yesterday. We saw Spain defeat Argentina 1-0 in extra time. Did you guys happen to watch the match?
I did.
Of course.
It wasn't very wasn't very exciting game, but we all watched it. There
It
were
was.
some highs and lows, but overall pretty melodramatic.
Yeah, anticlimactic, very boring. But then I guess at the end, the guys who conceded one goal in 8 games finally won. Offense sells tickets, defense wins games, and that was clearly at display.
Yeah, it
Yes.
was remarkable, and I'm not the biggest soccer fan, so I didn't want to say it was boring. I found it interesting, when you get into the possession battle and all of that. Obviously the stakes were so high, but yeah, it was an interesting match, I guess. But anyway,
You
um,
know, you know what was not boring?
what was not boring, Jan?
The game the day before.
A lot of goals in
Yeah.
that one.
10 goals?
10
Already
goals.
up 4-0 at half, and suddenly the reporters are like, "Ooh, this is now a real game. We're at 4-3." That was insane. So that was very fun.
It was fun. Fun weekend of football. So the final was obviously in East Rutherford, New Jersey, or as FIFA likes to call it, New York, New Jersey. Peter, as a hotelier in New York City, it feels right to start with you. What was the buzz like in the city for this final, and how was hotel performance this weekend at your properties?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you have a sporting event of this world magnitude, the excitement is um electric in a sense that you have people from all different cultures and all different backgrounds celebrating the unity of a sport. And you can imagine the passion behind that for people to travel maybe long distances or even, driving into the city and the area is a commitment. And it's because of the energy that someone wants to be a part of. And so we definitely felt that. We definitely felt that throughout the whole tournament with some peaks and valleys, right? For the peaks and valleys. And
Yeah.
I'll talk about that why later, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But for the weekend, we did see an increase. Both hotels ran in the 90s. We weren't completely sold out, but we did see an overall growth of about 10% year over year in occupancy at one hotel, and the other hotel saw about a 15% growth in occupancy year over the same weekend last year. And the other big catalyst was ADR. I mean, it really, really pushed ADR with more than a 25% growth in ADR for this weekend year over year. So that's all good stuff. All good stuff.
Yeah, all great stuff. And you mentioned that occupancy and rate piece, Jan, we've talked about it frequently throughout this tournament, how it's more of a rate game than an occupancy game. I think something, or maybe the biggest story of this, is sort of the expectations surrounding the World Cup versus the reality of its impact. I don't think that anyone is or was arguing that there wouldn't be a positive impact from the World Cup, but it was more of how much of an impact it would have compared to previous expectations. So, Jan, how did performance differ throughout this World Cup compared to what people were expecting? I don't know, 2 years ago when the draw was released in December, or even in the months leading up to it?
So I think we always said there's going to be an ADR event, and if I hear Peter correctly, that if I add 15 and 25 together, you get a 40% RevPAR growth. So congratulations on that. That is not what we saw for the market. We just released the June data, and if I look at the top 25 markets, so the ADR impact in New York City in June was plus 16. But then, interestingly, for the June occupancy was actually down 1.7%. I call that flat for all intents and purposes. But that's sort of what we had proposed, that there would be a slight uptick or a slight downtick or maybe flat performance. And the argument was always, oh, there will be people staying away from the markets that host the games, because if you're a corporate travel manager and you know the World Cup is coming, it's not a surprise, it's been very well advertised.
Mhm.
Are you really going to put your corporate event right into the downtown Boston, Seattle, Vancouver, Miami, New York City area where you're competing for room rates, for restaurant seats, for event space, for airfare, arguably, with the, you know, rowing Norwegians and the Tartan Army and all these other fans. So I think that's why the occupancy impact was more muted. Good to see and good to hear from Peter that the ADR impact indeed came to pass. What I'm wondering, Peter, if you take us back a year, basically, call it August, September, when you looked forward and you made your budget, was this to you a, oh my God, World Cup for 5 weeks? It's a 5 week impact, or were you just a lot more, I guess, clinical about it and said it's on this night, on this night, on that night, and of course on the final night? How did you think about the World Cup coming to your market?
Yeah, it's a great question. Before I answer that question, I want to echo kind of what you said there is that we heard from our corporate clients over June and into July. Don't go in. We're pausing business travel for a while. So as far as our market segments that we saw a decrease in group, we saw a decrease in corporate business travel in those segments, and the increase was exactly in the other segments, whether it be transient or whether it be discount with your OTAs, your
Mhm.
Expedias and Booking.com. So exactly what Jan said, that we did see that that drop in certain segments and an increase in the transient segment. So yeah, but what going back to Jan, your question, um, number one, we didn't know. I think we were all kind of guessing, but I think what we wanted to focus on was we know that the game dates would see it. We knew that we would see a bump in the game dates just because we know that people would come. But at the beginning, there was a couple of strategies. Number one, toward the end, right when things started getting excitement, the conflict was that you didn't know what countries because it was
Mhm.
tournament style. So I think when you have this multiple dates of games, but not really knowing what countries are going to play, it was difficult, right? And it was difficult in the sense that these group bookings from whether Norway or Spain or these groups that were coming, they didn't know when to
Mhm.
book. So we
Right.
saw a hold back, a hold back, a hold back, and people started getting nervous. The hotels started
Mhm.
getting nervous, and we started lowering rates because like, where are they coming?
Mhm.
And so that was one impact. The second impact was, we were hoping that we would get some residual. And what I meant by that was, even if it didn't land on a date where people would come not just for the game dates, but also make it into a vacation. So we wanted to, draw that in the sense that we knew that the compression would be there, and it just with being that um, it's such a large event that overall occupancy would be better. So I do agree with Jan. A little disappointment with occupancy. Wasn't as intense. We knew rate would grow, and I think our rate where we forecasted was pretty much right in line with what we believed that we would get. So yeah, almost the same kind of thought process.
Did you have any restrictions So say in, I don't know, if I knocked on your door in March and said, "Hey, I want to come for a game night," did you say, "Oh, it's 3 night minimum"?
We did. We had a minimum on game nights to get the shoulder nights so that that one game night didn't peak. And that's a
Mhm,
very common strategy that all hotels use. But I think the other strategy or lack of strategy was we had at the very beginning non-refundables, and we found that that was a failure because people didn't want to book a non-refundable because you didn't know whether your team was going to win or
Right.
not. You didn't know toward the end, right? So the non-refundables worked at the beginning, but when it turned into a tournament style,
mhm,
elimination tournament style, you couldn't do non-refundables because you couldn't have someone book a long time out and then their team doesn't make it and they can't
Mhm.
get their money back. So we immediately dropped that strategy. But yeah, that was one of the things that we did that we had to pivot.
interesting.
Jan, out of all the host markets, which were some of the biggest winners from hosting World Cup matches?
So not surprisingly, it was the smaller markets,
Mm,
Guadalajara, Monterrey. I mean, I don't want to say off the chart because obviously we have it on a chart, but 100% ADR growth, RevPAR growth in the Mexican markets on some of the game nights, incredible. Kansas City did tremendously well. And
mm,
then when because part of it is they hosted 4 teams, right, as the base camps.
Yes.
And so they had the Argentinians and the British and English, I guess, and then 2 others, I forget. Um, and so there was probably some additional travel of people traveling with their teams and always coming back to home base. That definitely helped. Then when I look at just the RevPAR impact for this is just June again, I don't it's gonna be,
yep.
a little bit different in July just because of what Peter said. Some of the host markets don't then actually have a lot of games anymore. San Francisco RevPAR up 31%. Now, fair disclosure, they had a large industry conference, a large tech conference in there as well. But nonetheless, Dallas, up 16%, New York up 14,
Mm,
LA up 14. So those were the markets in the top 25 markets that saw, tremendous gains and mostly on rate.
Yeah, which is exactly what you've been saying this whole time. That rate portion, that's sort of what is driving the performance in these markets. Um, I had a story run today about international inbound demand to the United States. To me, it's one of the biggest lasting stories from the tournament and something to keep an eye on. Um, Obviously, from all the stories that I've heard, seen on social media, anecdotally, it sounds like the people who did come over to the States to watch the World Cup had a great time. But Jan, when we spoke for the story, he told me how international travel was essentially flat to the States in the month of June. What does that say about the US as a global destination right now and moving forward?
So I I just look at the government data. Department of Commerce publishes the I-92 data. If you look at June, international inbound up 0.2%. If you exclude Canada and Mexico, you actually see a deceleration, minus 1.2% in June. And then you look specifically by continent, Europe down, Asia down, Latin, South America up. And you're like, wow, okay, interesting that the European traveler numbers are down year over year, given that there were so many strong European teams playing.
Right.
So that was interesting. Is it possible that some of them flew to Toronto and then drove? Yeah, maybe, possibly. But, just excluding that, just saying, oh, wow, people had expected a bump in international inbound. It was slightly up. You take out the two connecting countries, and it's slightly down. You're like, wow, that I don't think speaks to this being this global event that lifts brand USA up for years and decades to come. But I'm curious, Peter, on the ground, when you look at, the zip codes or the country codes, I guess, of people, booking your rooms, how does this connect to you on the ground?
Mm. Yeah, well, we connected it by number one, we see a spike in European travel in one major category. And I think that one of the biggest things that where we can gauge it is booking.com. Booking.com is based out of the Netherlands and it
Mhm.
books a lot of international for us as well. So we did see a spike in booking.com reservations and seeing that international traveler come over these dates. But similar to what you're saying, Jan, I expected a lot more. A lot of our travel was really localized. I mean, you
Mm.
had some Spain, some Argentinian fan base over this weekend that didn't have to fly from Europe. You had them in the United States and they drove. So those numbers, even though the hotel was full, the international travel numbers don't represent because they were all
Mm.
local. You have enough in this area in the northeastern section of the United States of all the melting pot of the world, right? So when you talk about any country, there's enough occupancy of people from that country in this area alone to come into the New York, New Jersey area to enjoy their team being still a 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour drive away. So those numbers probably don't reflect the push in.
Yeah, it's funny, right? You look in your lobby and it's full of Argentinian and Spanish
That's right.
shirts, and then you talk to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Boston."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Where it's funny that you mentioned in the smaller markets because in the smaller markets, perhaps the cultural divide is a little bit less where true Argentinian or Spanish fans maybe in Kansas City that multiplier is a little less, and so if you were to fly into that city being an international person, you'd see the spike there, being that perhaps the local draw is a little bit less from a percentage standpoint.
Yeah, we had Nashville here was the base camp for the Japanese team. So we did
Okay,
have
right,
some,
Japanese.
Japanese tourists and
Right.
Japanese media. Obviously you travel with the team and always came back. I think exhibit A to me on this is actually Chattanooga, where the Spanish
Mm,
team stay. And our friend Mitch Patel from Vision Hospitality, owns
yes.
and runs the Embassy Suite downtown. And so today, like this is the day after, their social media campaign shows the hotel and it says where champions stay.
Perfect. So the World Cup being here in the US was seen as an opportunity and also a testing ground for future mega events in the country moving forward. Los Angeles will host the Summer Olympics in 2028. The US will be one of the host countries for the 2031 FIFA Women's World Cup, which I believe New York, New Jersey is on the short list of hosts for that. And Salt Lake City will host the 2034 Winter Olympics. So a lot of these mega sporting events coming up in the next decade or so. Obviously, it's kind of hard. Oh, Jan, what do you have?
If I could just throw in there,
Go for
so
it.
for the Summer Olympics 2028, the soccer is happening in other markets, Oklahoma City and Nashville, Tennessee, y'all being one of
There
them.
you go.
So, like actually, they just opened up last week the volunteer website where you could put your name in the ring. So I'm going to ask to volunteer
There you
for
go.
the Olympic soccer tournament that is being played in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know if it's men's or women's; they haven't decided that yet. And obviously, a lot of these are not the national teams; they're the under 19 or under 21
Right.
teams. But still, it's going to be super fun.
It's not necessarily apples to apples comparing an event like the World Cup to an event like the Olympics. Jan, you mentioned that there's a couple of other markets involved, but it's mostly concentrated in Los Angeles,
Of course,
whereas
yeah.
this World Cup, you had 16 markets
Mhm.
where the games were split up and divided. And when you think about how each team in the World Cup, they would play a match and then they would have some days off, play another match, maybe in a different market. Whereas the Olympics, it's just over a few week period, all mostly in one market. Um, What are some lessons that could be learned from the World Cup this year that can be applied for these future mega events?
I have some thoughts, Peter, but I'd love to hear your perspective from an operational side before I jump into the national side.
Yeah, I think from an operational side is making it easy for the traveler.
Mhm,
And the reason why I say you want to make it easy is because, coming into a big market and just understanding the schedule or the travel or what restaurants to eat at, all that stuff is a lot to digest, especially perhaps if English isn't your first language. You're going to
mhm,
LA. Where are the sporting venues? How do you get all that stuff? And I think that New York, I don't know about other markets. They did a fairly good job with it. We partnered with NYC and Co. There was a very, very robust website that was published that allowed the travelers to go. It's sort of like a one-stop shop. It was
great.
a website that allowed a lot of information to be housed so that the traveler felt safe and felt well informed. So I think that's one of the things that we did well here in the New York market, just providing that information. And also, I think also you want people when they come to your specific hotel for the guests to be also knowledgeable and helpful, right? Often, you have these events and the front desk staff or the hotel staff isn't educated on it. So
Mhm,
when they get these questions, right, from the traveler, they don't know how to answer it, or they don't
mhm,
know how to help the traveler get to the
yep,
resource. And I think that's what it means by making it easy. You want to make the guests feel safe. You want to make them feel like the hotel is knowledgeable about the event and that they feel good about booking your hotel specifically. And so that's one thing we learned here is that providing information and knowledge and having a traveler feel safe about coming to your city is important. And I think one more thing is also, and I mentioned the word safe, that is also one thing that has to be done well. Is
mhm,
that when you have millions of people coming in a market, do I want to travel to New York or to New Jersey and feel safe that I'm not going to get something bad isn't going to happen during this time? And I think that's important too, that the city has to impose these these strict safety rules and regulations so things go off well. There needs to be enforcement. There needs to be government involvement in projecting this safe environment. So I think those two key things I learned from this go around that were really really important to us.
and maybe piggybacking on that, also that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like, you don't have to print out maps and tell people, "Oh, go XYZ." It's like, "No, here's the NYC& and Company website. This is everything you need," and tell
That's
your
right.
staff, "Look, guys, you got a question, this
Mhm.
is your first point of contact. This is how you talk to, to our guests." So, I
That's
think
right.
that's, so they can focus on other things, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Um, I think from the national, perspective, maybe, A, take a deep breath, don't freak out, right? I was super surprised that the booking window did not change as much as I thought it should. So
Mm,
we continued to publish in April and May forward-looking data, and the occupancies on the books were lower than same time last year. And a lot of reporters we talked to were like, "Oh my god, does that mean nobody's coming?"
Mhm.
It's like it turns out that the booking window was
mm,
not was not different from any other week, from any other major event, that people just took a long time. They may have booked their tickets for the game. They may have booked their airfare way out, but on the hotel side, it was sort of like a normal booking window when we look at the market level and the national data. So I thought that was super surprising. I was completely wrong. I had this snappy sentence of, "Oh, it's gonna be the tale of 2 World Cups,"
Mhm.
where maybe in the early rounds, because nobody knows the teams, Cape Verde, Curacao don't have a huge fan base, maybe it's not gonna be as well attended as the games in July. I was completely wrong. They were well attended no matter what, but
Mhm.
people just didn't book as far out as I thought because I was like, look, we knew this was coming 2 years ago. Like this was announced 6 months ago. You knew where you were playing. Why didn't you book your hotel room then? Well, people, I guess, didn't do that. So, in either way, so I think first lesson is deep breath. Yes, the demand is going to materialize. And then also, clearly, this is an 80-hour event, and I like to hear you learning, Peter, that you're saying, look, we thought it was non-refundable was the way to go. Nope, turns out that doesn't quite work. So I think there's a lot of learning in that. How do you get the right person to the right customer, to the right room, to the right price, within the right framing of saying, is it refundable, is it not refundable, how far out do you have to book? So I think those are the two things that come to mind.
I think another thing that we did wrong is that right when this was announced, every hotel had the same thought. Oh my gosh, World Cup coming to our area. They froze that. They blacked out that June to
Yep.
July. Nobody could
Yep.
book, and they were trying to scramble to figure out
Yep.
how are we going to maximize this timeline. And when they did figure it out, and they layered the rates in at the very beginning, everybody was astronomical.
Yep.
Everybody just went
Mhm.
crazy at the very beginning, right? Oh,
Yep.
we're just going to go crazy. We're going to make so much money. It's going to be thousands of dollars for a hotel room. 300% growth, whatever. And then we realized the travelers are smart. They're like, wait, this is outrageous. Maybe I'll just wait a little bit. And that's
Mhm.
what we saw. Nothing happened. It just kept going. And again, what Jan was saying, the booking windows were the same. They waited and waited and waited until they can find that deal that they felt comfortable with. So the travelers are smart nowadays, and they understand that you know these patterns, and nobody wants to overpay. But yeah, similar to what Jan was saying, that these are some of the things we learned as we went through this process.
I appreciate the honesty and humility from the 2 of
Yeah,
you. I mean, obviously, yeah, this is the first time the US was hosting the World Cup since 1994. Super spread out event, a lot of headwinds and noise going into it, so you could only do the best you could, trial and error, and, it seems like all things considered, still ended up pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think US Travel and Brand USA will take this as a jumping off point to say, look, this is a fun country. We have Bucky's, we have Walmart parking lots, we have ranch dressing. There's a lot to like. Please, don't make this the only trip in the last, 4 years. Come back.
So who do you
Yeah.
guys have winning the World Cup in 2030? It's never too soon to start.
Exactly. Put a line in the sand, Peter, because by that time, nobody will have remembered this podcast. So I think
Yeah,
you're
no one
totally in the
remembers,
safe
but
zone here.
that's right, that's right.
Yeah.
I'll just just throw a country out there. Who's going to remember exactly? I'll say France now. I'm not sure this somewhere is good. This is where you record. I'll give it to France. I think they should have probably won this year.
I had friends go all the way as well,
Yeah, you
and then
see,
they just completely crumbled.
collapsed. Yeah,
So
yeah.
Um, I think England has a good shot, but honestly, I give a lot of credit. We have a new German head coach who will start with the Euro, and so I think Germany in the Final Four, which is what I said this year, and I was completely wrong. But now we have new hope, and hope is the thing that kills you at the end. But I'm going to go with Germany in the Final Four.
I think it's good to have hope now, though. It's good to have hope right
Exactly.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 years of hope.
Jan, Peter, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. This was great and very informative.
So thank
Thank
you.
you.
The marquee gathering of the industry's data community is almost here. Join us August 5th through 7th in Nashville for the 18th annual Hotel Data Conference. With a unique mix of attendees, impactful networking, and practical best practices you can put to work immediately, HDC is where data turns into decisions. Visit hoteldataconference.com to view the 2026 lineup and secure your spot today.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded on July 20th, 2026, and edited by Trevor Simpson. Go to costar.com/hotel news for all the latest industry coverage and listen to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen.